Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me today. I think we'll wait another 2 to 3 minutes just to allow any other last minute stragglers to join us as well. Cool. I think we can get started. So, to begin with, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Varuni Mahajan. I work as a research operations and UX insights manager at Poocho. I have some experience in the fields of sociology, anthropology, and media, and of course, user research. And for today's webinar, we will be discussing usability testing. Right. And by the end of this session, I am hoping that you will come away with a clearer understanding of what usability testing is, what to keep in mind as you prepare to test your prototypes or your live products with real actual users, and how to get the most value out of any usability test or study that you're thinking of running. I'm going to switch off my camera now just in the interest of saving bandwidth, but stick with me and we're going to dive right into it. Right, I am just going to share my screen. Just give me a second. Awesome. So our theme today is watching users and improving experiences. We're going to talk about how observing real user behavior can help you identify friction points, improve usability, and ultimately create better products and experiences. What is usability testing? Right? At its core, usability testing is about observing people as they interact with something, whether that's a website, an app, a prototype, or even just a feature, to understand how well it works and where they might struggle. One way to think about usability testing is as a reality check. Usability testing shows you what users do, not just what they say they do. As product teams or marketers, we often assume something is intuitive, right? Because it makes sense to us. But users come with different mental models, expectations, and levels of familiarity. Usability testing helps us bridge that gap by showing us what actually happens when someone tries to use what we've created. The goal isn't to validate that everything works perfectly. The goal is actually to uncover where improvements are needed so we can make better decisions moving forward. When we run a usability test, we're not just asking people whether they quote unquote like something. We're looking for very specific outcomes that tell us how well the experience actually works. So, to begin with, the first is task success. Can users complete what they came to do, whether that's signing up, making a purchase, or finding information? Completion here is the baseline. Then, of course, we look at efficiency, how quickly and smoothly they're able to complete that task. Are there any unnecessary steps slowing them down in the process? Next comes clarity. Do people understand what they're seeing and what actions they're supposed to take? If users have to pause and think too much, that's usually a signal something isn't intuitive. We also have to pay close attention to errors and friction, where people get stuck, make mistakes, or feel overwhelmed and confused. These moments are incredibly valuable because they show us exactly what needs improvement. And finally, of course, there is confidence and satisfaction. Do users feel comfortable using the product? Do they trust what they're doing? And would they want to come back to it? Together, these outcomes give us a clear picture of whether an experience is working and, more importantly, what needs to be fixed next, if anything, of course. So, what does usability testing actually look like in the real world, right? I'm going to walk you through a few scenarios where teams commonly use it. The first one being websites and landing pages. In this example, testing whether users can easily find pricing information or say complete a sign up flow without any confusion is where usability testing would come in. For mobile apps and platforms, observing how people navigate features, whether gestures feel natural or not, and whether they get stuck during onboarding, right, are some examples of where usability testing can be used for mobile apps and platforms. For SaaS products, understanding how new users learn dashboards, interpret data, or just complete workflows inside highly complex tools, right? Which Yeah, SaaS products can be. And then comes, of course, the when you're launching a new product, right? So before releasing something to the market, teams test prototypes or even early versions to identify any usability gaps early on. Then of course comes redesigns and iterations, right? When you already have a product, usability testing helps validate whether the new version is actually better than the old one. And finally, there is conversion optimization. Now, this could involve testing checkout flows, subscription journeys, or CTAs to see what reduces drop offs and improves completion rates. Across all these examples, the goal is the same. We watch real people interact with something, identify those friction points, and use that evidence to make smarter decisions. So now that we've looked at where usability testing shows up, we can talk a little bit about how to run one effectively and efficiently. Think of this as your usability testing toolkit, what to get right before, and of course, during and perhaps after your study as well. So, to begin with, there's the research design, right? You have to start by having a clear goal and being clear on it as well. Are you trying to validate something, diagnose a problem, or optimize an experience? Then comes defining the actual tasks that your users should attempt. And the more specific your tasks, the more actionable insights you will get. Next comes deciding the fidelity of what you're testing. So, whether that's wireframes, prototypes, or a live product, usability testing works at any of these stages. And of course, choosing the right users is also key. So you could split them into different cohorts while running these like a usability test. So whether that is a cohort of new users versus existing users, power or heavy users versus casual users, and each cohort or group will give you different perspectives on the same product. And finally, it is super important to write down neutral task instructions. You don't want to hint at quote unquote the correct path. You want to see what users naturally do and what comes instinctively to them. All of this rolls up into insights that teams can use to make confident, evidence backed decisions. Now, I want to take some time to walk you through a full example. If I were to, for example, think of a brand, right, such as Spotify, which is an audio streaming platform, which is looking to revamp their UI and by extension attract new users. I will show you how I can run and how I did run this on Poocho end to end. In order to revamp their UI, they want to speak with existing users, let's say, who have a subscription to the platform already and who are between the ages of 25 to 35 and live in tier 1 cities across India. And to do that, I will now show you what our first module recruit looks like. Just give me 1 second. So this is what my Poocho dashboard for the recruit module looks like. It is a combination of what we call draft, live, and close studies. In the interest of time, I have already created a draft study. I'm just going to open that now. And as you can see, there are 5 steps to get through before you can finally launch your study. And I'm going to walk you through the first step now, which is find participants. We have a variety of filters. As you can see, there's a bunch here, right? I'm just randomly clicking on some of our filter categories. I've already saved and preloaded a set of filters, and these essentially include participants, as you can see, between the ages of 25 to 35. They all reside in tier 1 cities. I'm also gender agnostic, so I've left this information out. A quick note on the way our filters work. If no filters are applied, you'll see all participants that are present in our panel. And once you select an option, only participants who match that selection will appear. So Therefore, I've left gender out of this. I also wanted to speak with participants who have purchasing power, right? So I selected salaried employees, business owners, freelancers, or self employed people under the section work. For the purpose of this study, I also, because of course I am in this case working for Spotify, I am working for an audio and music streaming platform. So I wish to speak with participants who've selected, say, music, right, as one of their key interests, and participants who own at least a smartphone, right? Which I will show you how I can now select. If I go under the filter category of tech here, I can go ahead and click on smart devices that are owned and just click on smartphone, and this selection will be applied to my filters as well. And before I move on to the next step, I can see that there are 302 people who fit this category and my filter criteria. And like I said, before I move on to the next step, always remember to save and continue. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Then comes the second step. This is where I have already actually built out my screener. I've preloaded some of this information, but this is also where I have added questions that I want participants to answer before I schedule a session with them. There are many different question types to choose from, and the one that I find super useful is to add the multiple file upload question in particular, which you can see here at the bottom. I have used this question type to ask participants to share a screenshot of their Spotify subscription and plan that they're on. And I've also left short instructions on how they can find this and how they can take the screenshot. There are many different question types to choose from, as you can see on the left here. And for this study, I just asked them in particular for the screenshots, and participants can use this, can answer this question and can upload all sorts of files, right? So like docs, images, etc. I can also use the preview feature here just to see what this screener will look like from the participant's perspective. Moving on to the next step, which is add study details. As you can see, there are multiple fields to fill out here. So to begin with, there is the internal title. This is the title that only my team and I can view, and I've kept this simple. The public title, this is the study title as it appears to invited participants. So you want to make it sound, catchy, right? And for the about a study description field, this is the section where I used to tell participants what my study is all about. And therefore, again, you want to make it sound extra catchy and exciting so as to attract more applications and eyeballs. And rich text here also allows me to kind of fiddle around and make it my own. This section and this field note to participants, this shows up for participants who I've scheduled a session with, right? So I would add any details here that I want them to keep in mind as they're about to join a session with me. And then, of course, there is screen sharing, right? So if I want participants to share their screen using either their mobile phone or their laptop or their desktop, this is a super important step. And this is where I would select the same. There is also the participant incentive. A quick note on this, I have found that it is super important to keep my TG in mind for any study that I may be running when setting an incentive amount. And 100% of this goes to participants, right? So we also have the cover image, which is just a photo that shows up as part of the study invitation. So moving on to the next step, which is manage your calendar. Here, I can set up my study timeline and put in dates that work according to my schedule. Session duration as well is something that we can select here. While, as you can see, we offer different session duration options for different purposes. For this study in particular, when the purpose of an in-depth interview or an IDI is to conduct a usability test with screen sharing, right? 45 minutes should be plenty. But again, it also really depends on the number of tasks that you want them to get through as well. If there are, say, more than 2 to 3 tasks, then you would probably want to extend the session duration to 60 minutes, right? Then, of course, Uh, you can also put in your working hours, and putting down your working hours is super helpful and super important, as well as this information can be viewed by participants and they can give their availability according to yours and have a look at that and match it accordingly. So this is an important step as well. Moving on to the fifth and final step, which is send invites. I am now ready, since I've already preloaded all this information, I have it in there. I'm now ready to invite participants to my study. I can review all the details of my study before launching it and sending out invites, which includes the About section, the number of participants I've shortlisted, the screener, which you can view here as well, incentive, all of this, along with the timeline, right? And also, once at this step, I can also invite other team members by clicking here, as you can see. You may want designers or other people from your team to view these sessions, right, as well. And this is one way that they can be part of your study too. Now that I'm ready to launch my study, I want to take you back to my original presentation and walk you through the final slide, which kind of actually talks about running your usability test and what that entails. Just give me 1 second. So this slide is just about running your study. And when it comes to running your actual study, you have to encourage users to think aloud as they complete tasks. So you kind of understand where they're coming from and their reasoning and not just their actions. Try to avoid helping, and this one is a tough one even for me. But try to avoid like helping them even when it's uncomfortable, because moments of hesitation are where your biggest insights are revealed. Instead of like giving them the right path or laying it out for them, you can probe them gently with questions like, what are you thinking here, right? And as you observe, it is important to focus on patterns and not just individual preferences. Repeated friction points are what signal real usability issues, right, across different sessions, different participants. And finally, it is important to translate what you learned into clear, prioritized actions, what should change and what will have the biggest impact and why. Now that I've walked you through how I created my draft study, which I took live as well, and what entails running your actual study, I am going to show you what my live study looks like on my Poocho dashboard. Just give me 1 second. Once I've launched my study and sent out invites, I will be redirected to my live study dashboard, which essentially looks like this. It's called the Overview tab. This is where I can see all the money that I've spent, the start date of my study, along with the number of sessions I've completed successfully. I can also view in the calendar here all of the sessions that I do have scheduled. And as you can see, I can see that I have a session scheduled with Ishita for right now. So I can view that information here as well. In the invitations tab, I can see all the participants that I have invited to the study, and I can use this button here to add more participants to my study as well if needed. Right. Under the ongoing tab, this tab essentially allows me to view all the participants who have applied to my study, that is, filled out the screener and given their availability, and participants who I have sessions scheduled with. So, but to begin with, I would like to show you what Nimisha's application looks like. This is where I can view her bio as well, right? Her profile details. I can also look at her screener responses here. So she is a subscriber of Spotify, and she shared a screenshot as well, which I can click on view, and it just opens in a different tab. I can also view her availability here, right? So, and as I already mentioned, I have a session scheduled with Ishita for this time. And I also would like to show you another little detail, which we call guest links, right? So if I toggle on to session details here, I can get access to what is the guest meeting link. This feature essentially allows stakeholders such as product managers or anyone else on your team to join sessions simply as observers. They don't actually have to be part of your study. So they get access to this session's guest link and they can just join as a guest and an observer. So, for the purpose of this webinar, we had actually wanted to run a short live usability test during the webinar itself, but due to technical limitations, I won't be able to share my screen with audio. So, to that end, I will now share a brief recording of a mock session that I actually ran with one of my colleagues, where she joined the session as a participant and I joined as a researcher, and we ran this short usability test. So, cool. Give me a second while I set that up. I hope that you guys can see this. I'm just going to play it now. As you can see, this is where I can join the session from, the little black button with the video icon. And I usually like to.
This meeting is being recorded.
Right. I usually like to join a session 5 to 10 minutes before session start time so that I can actually go through what you are seeing on your screen now, which is the extended bio, right? And look at the screener responses, look at the participant's bio and their profile, and make my questions as targeted as possible. It gives me greater insight into the participant I'll be speaking with. Hi, Ananya.
Hi, Varuni.
Hi, thank you for joining me today. Let's get right into it. Yeah. Could you share your
Yeah,
mobile screen with me and open Spotify, please?
yes. So this is my Spotify screen.
Yes, I can see that. So, to begin with, can you show me how you usually find something to play that you already like?
So whatever I listen to frequently that I like, and they show up in the list that is on the top of my screen,
Mm-hmm.
like played on paper, Michael learns to rock, all that. And then sometimes if I like specific songs and more and I want to keep them separately, I create a file in my library and I put them in these files.
Okay, all right. So is that how you essentially, can you show me how you would, you're talking about putting them, like songs that you like and listen to in files. Can you show me and walk me through the process of how you would do that? Like if you found something that you like, how would you save it and organize it?
Yeah. So I'll first create a file
Mm-hmm.
and I'll go to I'll click on this playlist. Uh, let's say country music
Mm-hmm.
is the name I've given to this file. And then, for example, this song that's coming in the recommended songs because I listen to it frequently.
Right.
So if I click on this, it starts playing anyway. Here, this plus sign is there. So if I click here, it shows it gets automatically added to liked songs. It's something that Spotify gives you. You don't create it. But
Mm-hmm.
I want to put it in country music, which is empty because I just created it now. And that's it. It gets added. So now if I go to my library and then to country music folder, long live song is added here.
Okay, all right, all right. Uh, okay, thanks for taking the time today, Ananya, and for your valuable insights. I think this has been super helpful. So yeah, and I hope that we get to see you again next time in another Poocho session.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you, Varuni.
Okay, awesome. Ananya, have a good day. Bye bye.
Yeah.
As you can see, I've exited the session now. And I'm being taken to a screen where I can rate my interaction with this participant as well. Once I go back to my dashboard, I'm gonna stop sharing this now and share my screen instead. Yes. Once I go back to my dashboard, right, after I've completed a session, I can also toggle on to the completed tab. As you can see, Ananya's session has moved from the ongoing tab to the completed one. And here I am able to go to session details and download the session recording, which is almost readily available, and plug it into what we call Studio, which is our second module. Studio is essentially an AI powered tool where you can upload your session recordings and it automatically generates transcripts with video stamps. Beyond transcription, it can also translate, analyze your data, and present insights using ready to use templates. You can even chat with the AI to get quick, specific answers to from your transcripts. I can access transcript from here, and even I'm just going to mute this for a second and even play the recording with audio, and the relevant timestamps show up as well. I'll just skip a little bit so you guys can see. As you can see, it's doing it in real time, right? We also have a set of ready to use templates. As you can see here, all templates are useful in their own ways, but the one that I found to be most useful for this sort of a study, which is usability test in particular, is this one called product journeys. It may seem a bit small on my screen here, so to properly showcase the same, I've already downloaded this template as a PDF, which I will share now, which you can also do. Each and every template is downloadable as a PDF file. Right. Zoom in as well a little bit, I think. Yeah. And as you can see, this table here has all the information that I could need along with relevant quotes and timestamps that if I click on the same, it will take me to the specific quote in Studio. So it has been super helpful. It talks about usage, it talks about discovery, that it talks about mastery as well, which I think Ananya did display in creating a playlist as well. Right. And again, similar things around usage. So there you have it. And that was our webinar, guys. I hope that you found it interesting and insightful. And I'm going to let you guys now use the Q&A feature to send in whatever questions that you may have. I'll give you guys a couple of minutes to do that. Cool. I can see that there are a bunch of different questions, in fact. And the first one is, can we input specific usership criteria? Very good question, Sushmita. And if the question is specifically around being able to fill in, say, filter criterias, like the criteria, like the ones that I spoke about, we can definitely filter our participant panel for, different facets. And not only that, we can also use the screener as a way to kind of, filter out other people who may or may not be users of your product or your platform or whatever else it may be. I hope that answers your question. I'm going to move on to the next one, which is how many participants are enough for a usability test? The answer to that is for directional insights, I would say 5 to 8 participants per user segment. Like the different cohorts we already discussed, often reveal most major usability issues. So if you're testing out multiple personas or flows, You will need representation across each. I hope that answers your question. I will move on to the next one. What kind of tasks should we give users during a usability session? Tasks should essentially be, I would say, realistic and outcome focused and not just step based, and also tied to critical user journeys, right? So those could include like sign up flows, onboarding, or even offboarding, honestly, or checkout flows, right? So an example would be, say, instead of clicking on pricing, right? Say you can say something like you want to compare plans before purchasing. How would you do that? That is the sort of question that you can ask during a usability test and just frame it a little differently. I will move on to the next question, which is, can we run both moderated and unmoderated usability tests on Poocho? Yes, Poocho currently supports moderated usability sessions only, where researchers can observe and interact with participants in real time. So I would say we only support moderated usability tests currently. Cool. Moving on to the next one, which is, how do you prioritize which usability issues to fix first? Good question. I would say focusing on issues that block task completion and impact the most users, or even have a high business impact. Those would be the usability issues to tackle first and foremost. And again, use patterns across participants to kind of identify what's most urgent. And the last question here is, how often should teams run usability tests on the same product? This is also a good question. I would say it depends on the product stage, right? So, an early stage prototype should probably be tested frequently, while mature products can be tested on only key features and key feature updates or redesigns and iterations. Awesome. I think those are all the questions. So, yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to join today's session, guys, and for your thoughtful questions. I really hope that this webinar has helped you get prepped and ready to go for your next usability test. And if you have any questions about the product or any processes that we've discussed today, please feel free to reach out to us. Yeah, and happy usability testing.